surprised at the extent of the average citizen's knowledge of his public library. Ask him, and he'll tell you.
What's a library? Well, it's a building full of books. There's one just down the street.
We have an excellent library. Modern architecture, functional design. Why, it's brand new, in fact.
No, it doesn't cost anything to use the library. Of course, I'm too busy to use it myself, but now my neighbors use it all the time.
You want to know how the library works? You go in and you pick out your books, and you keep them for 2 weeks. Bring them back late and they charge you.
Well, you and I know more about libraries than that, don't we? We know, for example, that libraries don't just run themselves, that they flourish or simply exist or even dwindle away because of the action or inaction of what's known as the Library Board of Trustees. The trustees are basically responsible for the library's well-being. Knowing that, we can call ourselves experts on libraries, can't we? Or can we? Just suppose that you're a library trustee, or that you're being considered for the job, or that you'd like to be considered. After all, you do read books. And suppose further that to qualify as a library trustee, you had to pass a test to prove your competence and knowledge of library operations. Could you pass? Okay, fine. We'll give you a little test, multiple choice. Now, the choices and decisions that library trustees make are not simple, so pick your answers carefully and no help from your neighbor. Let's start with this. People should become library trustees because, A, it pays well. B, you get a first look at new books. C, it's a big honor. All right, what's your answer? Obviously, it is an honor to be selected as a library trustee. And maybe, just maybe, you might be first in line at the book checkout desk. But the real reasons people should be interested in library trusteeship haven't anything to do with the books they may get to read or whether it will look good in their obituaries. As for the money in it, there isn't any. Whether trustees are appointed or elected, they generally serve without pay. Actually, none of these answers is right. So, what reasons are left for being a trustee? Well, there's only one. To provide the best library service. It's that simple. How does a trustee do this, anyway? A, attend board meetings. B, set library policy. C, carry out public relations. D, manage money. Did you answer all of the above? Right. Obviously, trustees should attend board meetings regularly. An empty chair is pretty discouraging and usually leads to this kind of thing.
So I think we can go ahead now and contact a consultant.
And when did we decide to do that?
Well, we voted on it at our last meeting.
Well, I most certainly didn't. Nobody asked me.
I don't really believe you were here, were you? Oh.
Okay, since we have decided to go ahead on schedule.
The trustee who isn't there can contribute little to setting library policy. And that important business known as policymaking is the #1 trustee responsibility. Just what is policy, anyway? Pick out the best definition. A, blueprint. B, recommendation. C, philosophy. This is a tricky question, because all the answers relate to policy to some extent, but the best answer is blueprint. Like a blueprint, policy should be drawn up on paper. It should state the what, when, where, and how of the library. Also, like a blueprint, it should be understandable and explicit, but not ironclad. Trustees must be ready to review it and even change it when necessary. Let's take a closer look at the blueprint we call policy. What are some of the details? What's involved?
General objectives, administrative details,
Hours. Holidays.
vacations,
Sick leave.
salaries,
Association dues. Travel expenses.
retirement,
Services.
meeting rooms,
Bookmobile.
branches,
Records. Film.
page, the blind,
The illiterate. Ballet.
theater,
Gifts.
memorial grants, taxes, money.
Okay. If you said library policy includes all these things, you are right. And your job Making that policy may seem pretty complicated, but it needn't be if you understand what it is you're trying to do and that you can get help. As a trustee, you guide the library and its activities so that it can best serve your community in a constantly changing society. Libraries today can't be just buildings full of books. Instead, they must be centers for culture, information, and recreation for all kinds of people, from the disadvantaged to the most sophisticated businessman. Libraries should know the communities they serve or don't serve, to see that the library reaches the community. That's the job of the Board of Trustees, with help, of course, from the librarian and his staff.
After an informal look at the situation,
Trustees hire the librarian and then make him a real participant in board meetings on an impersonal and business-like basis.
now, would this apply to the children's section too?
Oh, definitely.
Thus, he can supply information and ideas to the board,
The children
and he will know the reasons behind board decisions.
vitally important.
This relationship is very important because the librarian is the board's link with the library staff and the people who use the library.
But it is true that
He is the day-to-day boss of the library.
the section will increase.
To check your knowledge of what a librarian does, here's a list. Pick out the things that are a librarian's business. A, book purchases. B, hiring and firing. C, public appearances. D, receiving complaints. Did you say all of them again? That's right. If the librarian doesn't perform these duties, either the board is interfering in daily business or you need a new librarian. Every one of these comes under the heading of daily business, and there's lots more in the same category. Yet things will come up that are beyond his authority, things that only the Board of Trustees can deal with. Such matters usually involve, you guessed it, policy. We can't cover everything, so let's pick out just a few of the most common policy matters that trustees must handle. At the top of the list is money. Just where does a library get its money anyway? Multiple choice. A, fines on overdue books. B, contributions. C, taxes. D, investments. The answer is taxes, because most libraries depend on public money for their operations. Contributions and investments made possible by legacies do help some libraries, but far and away the most important source of library money is taxes. And although trustees can set fines and make decisions about other minor income, they often can't levy taxes. Yet libraries depend on taxes for their existence. Does this mean that trustees become involved in politics? A, yes. B, no. C, sometimes. Your answer should be a resounding yes. The idea that government on whatever level and libraries don't mix is as old-fashioned as the notion that librarians are born with a passion for silence. The library can't separate itself from government any more than any other modern institution can, and that means politics. What's more, there's a great need to upgrade library services and create new ones. There are building sites to be acquired and remodeling to be done. These activities require funding, and that means politics. There are connections with other libraries and library systems to be set up and expanded. And that means politics, not the partisan factional kind, but sensible relationships with people and organizations that can get things done. So how does a trustee manage this? What's the best answer? A, exert pressure. B, woo a politician. C, establish good public relations. The right answer is C, establish good public relations. As a matter of fact, everything that's needed in a political effort can be grouped generally under public relations. And whatever your goals are, good contact with the public is essential. Naturally, you can expect lots of competition for the tax dollar. To meet the competition, you'll need to apply the principles of good salesmanship.
Decide what is our best plan.
First, think out a practical program. In other words, understand what needs to be done and how to do it. Second, work through the existing political setup. Don't fight City Hall, but don't neglect it either. Third, remember that political goals aren't necessarily won in the legislature. People holding public office don't always hold the most public influence. So seek out community leaders and convince them that the library deserves their help.
Some of the brochures that are offered.
Finally, and most important, get strong support from the man on the street. And this is where your public relations program may meet its biggest test. It must reach the average citizen. To do this, your program should have one of these characteristics. A, fireworks. B, camouflage. C, continuity. Well, the answer is continuity. This means that the library maintains year-round contact with the general public through releases to newspapers, to television, and radio.
Here's another bookmark announcement from your library.
The same kind of material can go to club and church bulletins, house organs, and school papers. And there should be continuous special promotions throughout the year. But let's admit it, these are the obvious means of spotlighting the library. Look for other approaches. Keep in mind that a library that serves only a few people is going to get support from only a few. For instance, how many of your programs are for people who already use the library? To reach the others, get involved in your community. Volunteer to work in various programs and planning committees, whether or not they have any direct connection with library affairs. This will give you a chance to talk to people, to tell them what the library is doing, what it has to offer. And you'll learn where the library stands, too, with people of every kind and conviction.
Child brought it home from the library.
You'll have to face some who disagree completely with certain library policies. The would-be censors, for example.
You should be aware of the responsibilities of the library to the community itself.
Well, have you any idea of the filth that you can find on
More often than not, they are conscientious and well-meaning, motivated by a conviction that they are right.
I know what I'm talking about because I read the book. Now you say...
And the trustee must assume that the censor does feel this way. Otherwise, the library may find itself censoring the censor, the pot calling the kettle black. At the bottom of all questions of censorship is the principle of our freedom to read. Library policy should be written with that understanding, and the policy should be drawn up before you need it. There's nothing new about censorship. It has probably existed ever since we learned to communicate with each other and learned to disagree. Censorship is a public relations challenge, and the best way to meet it is head-on, honestly and face-to-face. In fact, your most effective public contacts will all be managed the same way, face-to-face. It's a very personal matter. Once this kind of thing gets rolling, you may be surprised at the results. The library will not only get its share of attention, it'll get its share of tax money. Now let's suppose that's the case. What do you, as a trustee, do with that money? A, spend it, or B, save it. Are you ready for the answer? Spend it. Library money is public money, and it has to be spent if the public is going to benefit. Of course, no trustee, not even the board, can be expected to make all financial decisions without help. You can get help from several sources. For example, in preparing the budget, the librarian and his professional staff can furnish details. And you can call on consultants from your state library or from the headquarters of your own library system, if you have one. Then compare your library with state and national standards to help determine how your money may be put to the best use. Better yet, get away from your own area. See for yourself what others are doing. You may be surprised to find that libraries with limited funds can really grow. One of the best ways to start is to get the library involved in a library network, linked together by teletype and, of course, by telephone.
We like that bound volume.
Even modest libraries, by joining others and cooperating, can offer many services which might be otherwise impossible. And should you yourself become a joiner? Answer yes or no. Yes, you should. There's help for both the trustee and his board in belonging to state and national associations and the American Library Trustee Association. Read the information they send. Attend the workshops and conferences. Some trustees may have a tendency to think too small, you might say. They confine themselves only to what they think their library can do. Actually, they should be receptive to larger ideas. And a good way to get these ideas is to be a joiner, in the best sense of the word. Okay, we don't know how you came out on our little multiple choice quiz, only you know that. But anyway, you get the point. A library trustee's job requires enthusiasm, diplomacy, good judgment, and leadership. It's a job with many aspects and many different problems. And every problem has many possible solutions. And it's up to you to pick the right ones. The way you face these decisions will determine what kind of a trustee you'll make. And ultimately, how well your library will serve the community. As we said at the beginning, you have a multiple choice.